Chapter 1046, A Test. That gentle voice seemed to resonate with the thoughts deep in Audrey's heart. She only felt a little resistant to it before feeling as though it came from her heart, and that it was her truest thoughts. H. Vin Rambus looked at her emerald green eyes and said unhurriedly, "Secondly, in the upcoming banquets and balls, don't be as opposed as before to the few princes who take the initiative to show their fondness. Also, praise them a few times in front of Earl Hall and his wife. Remember all of the above, this is the reflection of your subconscious. Then, forget that I once said these things to you. Forget that this behavior is different from your usual behavior. Don't try to seek blessings, and stay away from key spots in the Church of Evernights Mass." With that said, H. Vin Rambus retracted his gaze from Audrey's eyes. He turned to cue Annie and the rest, preventing them from being surprised by their mistress's subsequent odd behavior. After dealing with all these things, he disappeared from the carriage without causing a stir. Ring! Another bike passed by the window as Audrey's slightly anxious eyes recovered their luster. She looked at the people on the street, coming and going, when she suddenly let out a soft exclamation. Then, embarrassed, she turned her head to say to Annie and the rest, "I forgot something. I have to visit Glaint first." At this moment, the carriage hadn't left Empress Borough and wasn't too far from Viscount Glaint's residence. The servants like Annie didn't find it strange or become put in a difficult position. They quickly instructed the coachman to turn into another street. This continued until 20 minutes to 10 in the morning. Audrey finally arrived at Phelps Street. She walked into the second floor of the Lone Charity Bursary Foundation and entered her director's office. Looking at Annie and the others either organizing documents or using the spring water they brought alone to prepare black tea, Audrey brought Susie along to the lounge that was attached to her office. It was as though she wanted to check on her face to determine if she needed her lady's maid to help touch up her makeup. During this process, Audrey glanced at the keyhole and asked Susie in a relaxed manner, "Was there anything abnormal with my behavior today?" This was a habit that she had only gotten in the past few days. It had only started from the moment H. Vin Rambus disappeared. She knew that Mr. Fool's angelic blessing wasn't permanent. It could only be sustained for some time, and she wasn't able to determine when H. Vin Rambus would visit her. When that happens, she wouldn't have the time to pray to Mr. Fool and do the corresponding preparations. Therefore, from her understanding and cautious attitude towards psychology and mysticism, she not only checked her behavior 3 times a day for any abnormalities or for any excessive coincidences, but she also instructed Susie to take note of her condition and be her mirror. This was a precautionary measure of being hypnotized by H. Vin Rambus and cued without realizing it. Susie sat by the side and thought seriously before saying, "Yes." Audrey's smiling expression stiffened. She quickly looked at Susie and waited for her explanation. Susie wriggled her nose and looked around before continuing. "You didn't plan on paying a visit to Viscount Glaint when you left the house, but you changed your schedule halfway. You'll inform me of the general schedule ahead of time over the past few days. Also, you said that you would discuss it with me if you decide to suddenly change or add to the schedule." Upon hearing Susie's reply, Audrey's expression turned grave. She still didn't feel that there was anything unusual about this matter, but this situation was extremely abnormal. This made her almost certain. H. Vin Rambus had been here before, right after she left her house and before she headed for Glaint's residence. The other party had already cued and hypnotized her and removed all traces. However, he didn't exhort a dog, making it feel like everything that it saw was normal. Audrey subconsciously wanted Susie to leave so that she could pray to Mr. Fool, but she was hesitant. Would my current behavior be monitored by H. Vin Rambus? Will he be sitting somewhere in this room and quietly be watching me? No, if that were to happen, he would have discovered a problem when I asked Susie. Praying wouldn't make the outcome any worse. Even if he's here, Mr. Fool would also discover it. I can promise a future sacrifice and pray that he directly send divine punishment. However, why don't I wish to pray and ask for help? Audrey stood there, all kinds of feelings running through her as she instinctively wanted to escape. This made her realize the contradiction, and she realized that there was a bit of resistance in her heart. From the perspective of psychology and mysticism, she had a vague guess. She quickly put aside the idea of seeking help, allowing herself to be in her usual state of praying to the goddess without the desire of getting a response. This greatly reduced the conflict in her heart. Audrey instantly became confident. She gestured for Susie to leave first, then she looked into the mirror and began softly hypnotizing herself. "You're not asking for help, you're only doing your usual prayers. You're not asking for help, you're only doing your usual prayers." After repeating it over and over again, the vortex deep in the light greenness of Audrey's eyes that could suck a person's soul slowly dissipated, and her eyes returned to normal. She then raised both her hands and placed them between her mouth and her nose. Then, she chanted in ancient Hermes, "The fool that doesn't belong to this era, I might have met H. Vin Rambus." As she spoke, she didn't mention any desire for any help, but described her discovery. After waiting for a while, a deep red light appeared in front of Audrey, drowning her like a tidal wave. Suddenly, her thoughts became clear, and images flashed across her mind. It was H. Vin Rambus in his black three-piece suit, who was sitting in a horse carriage, sitting opposite her. It was the elder who had exhorted her, with a gentle voice. It was the demigod from the spectator pathway, whose light blue eyes, that seemed to contain infinite wisdom and vortices. At the same time, those words resounded in Audrey's ears again, making her remember everything that had happened. After the crimson glow disappeared, she saw the long bronze table in front of her. Sitting at the seat of honor at the end of the table was a figure shrouded in the grayish-white fog. As emotions of fear, horror, and panic surged through her, she stood up, lifted her skirt, and curtsied to the great existence. "Thank you for your blessings, Honorable Mr. Fool." Klein nodded and smiled approvingly. "You handled it well." Upon hearing this, Audrey suddenly felt at ease, no longer as nervous as before. She sat down and calmly described what had happened to her. As the Fool, there was no way for him to directly discuss things with Miss Justice, analyze it for her, or give suggestions. All he did was smile and say, "This is a test of fate." A test? Only through this test will I have the qualifications to become a demigod, so that I can protect the people I want to protect in Backland, which is in a state of turmoil. Audrey interpreted Mr. Fool's hint and nodded seriously. "I understand." Without another word, Klein sighed and smiled. "Go back and welcome it." Audrey was about to express her gratitude again when the crimson light appeared before her eyes, blurring everything she saw. In the blink of an eye, she returned to the real world, but she didn't forget or ignore anything. "A test? Does that mean that I have to resolve the danger of H. Vin Rambus without exposing my secrets? Even if I cause the death of H. Vin Rambus, I still wouldn't be suspected by the psychology alchemists? How should I do that?" Audrey looked at the abnormally beautiful blonde in the mirror. She turned her head slightly and glanced slightly to the side. There was a large lounge in that direction. It belonged to the director who didn't have any responsibilities in the foundation. Just 10 minutes ago, Audrey had seen Mr. Dwayne dance inside when she was heading up the stairs. Above the gray fog, Klein's fingers tapped on the edge of the long mottled table as he analyzed what had happened between Miss Justice and Miss Judgment last night. "That's not right. Adam had given me the unshadowed crucifix through Miss Judgment and Miss Magician. How could he not know which existence is behind them? What other test needs to be done? Last night, I thought that the investigation of Miss Zio was purely an action from the King's faction, where they only used the help of a mid-sequence beyonder from the psychology alchemists. And for some reason, Adam didn't share any information of the Fool with the King's faction or the Demoness sect. After all, he still hopes that I can give him some feedback. But from the looks of it, this probe has Adam involved in it. Otherwise, H. Vin Rambus wouldn't be involved in this matter. Even for the Twilight Hermit Order, a saint is rather precious and important. They wouldn't give one up so easily as a sacrifice. What is Adam trying to test? He is testing to see if Miss Judgment's investigation of Viscount Stratford and her subsequent actions were purely by her own choice, or if it had the will of the Fool involved. If the Fool gets the unshadowed crucifix and realizes that the King's secret is related to Adam's scheme while still insisting that his subordinates investigate it, That will be making the Twilight Hermit Order an enemy. And Adam knows that Jayaman Sparrow is a blessed. But with Adam's abilities, there's no need to test out anything. Just sitting next to Misjudgment and listening to her true thoughts will be enough to grasp the actual situation. There's no need to go through so much effort. Unless he has already left Backland, or rather, to avoid certain problems. He doesn't dare enter this big city again, and can only investigate it through his subordinates. My warning to Ms. Ariana and the Church of Evernight has taken effect, causing Adam to sense the danger of a divine descent. Probably, even though he knows that Jayaman Sparrow has something to do with the death console, he probably wouldn't notice that something has happened to Artificial Death. Even the numinous Episcopate's Artificial Death faction hasn't noticed a thing. Therefore, with the authority of concealment augmenting this, he has no idea that the goddess wouldn't be able to carry out a divine descent for a long period of time. Next up, I'll have to deal with H. Vin Rambus. I must make sure that Miss Justice is steered clear so as to not have any relations and isn't suspected. Just as this thought crossed his mind, he saw Miss Justice Audrey enter the director's lounge through her prayer light in search of Dwayne Dance. He quickly reined in his thoughts and returned to the real world.